Welcome to Agents and Owners Chit Chat, where we talk to local superheroes, hear how they got their start, overcame obstacles, and how they use social media to achieve their goals. For Agent and Owners social media tips, please visit www.gladmash.com. Here's this week's episode.
Hey everybody, thanks for chiming in or tuning in on another episode of Agents and Owners Chit Chat with Cas Thompson. This morning, we have on a special guest, not only a fellow business owner, but somebody that I've known for a long time, personal friend, family member. There we go. We have Nicholas Stewart. Welcome to the podcast, Nicholas.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep. There you go. So before I even get into giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself, a lot of users are going to want to know, is it too late to get into the Airbnb game?
Definitely not. The rumors that it's Atlanta may be oversaturated, but you don't have to just think of interior Atlanta. In Georgia, there's plenty of places that you can still start up an Airbnb.
Gotcha. All right. So that's going to be the number one question that I know a lot of listeners wanted to just get out the way. So now we could work backwards and you can introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, how long you've been in the game as an owner of an Airbnb. What would you even call it? Management company?
Short-term rental property management company.
There you go. So
if you're looking into Airbnb, you'll learn the acronym of STR, short-term rental, which is different than traditional rental. Most people are familiar with the standard, maybe buy a house, rent it out on 12-month, 24-month leases. STR is moving away from long-term traditional rental to short-term rental, where you're just looking at minimum 1-day stays to up to, some people say 30-day stays. The first Airbnb I ever did was in April of 2010, which was a couch rental. So it's been 11 years. 11 years. The company started in 2016. And so many people don't know, or who's listening may not know, but how I started was actually just renting out tents in the backyard. In 2016, in the English Avenue section of Atlanta, formerly known as The Bluff, I bought a couple of tents from Walmart for about $15 to $20 each. And I was renting out space in the backyard at $25 a night.
Wow. And people were obviously signing up.
People were signing up and it stayed booked. They had no access to the house. They were just fine with a tent space. This is for festivals in Atlanta. It was around September 2016.
Gotcha.
And they were happy for a place to sleep and Wi-Fi from the house.
Nice. That's crazy. So let's fast forward. Now it's 5-6 years later. How has the industry changed in those past few years?
There's two changes. There's the pre-COVID change and the after-COVID change. So we'll just talk with the after-COVID change.
Right.
How the industry looks right now is traveling has changed. You're looking at more longer stays. You're looking at two things. You're still doing short-term rental, but people aren't traveling to Atlanta for SEC championships or Dragon Con and things like that. That travel has changed. You're looking more for a couple of conferences has come back, but you're looking for transitional remote workers who are thinking about moving to Atlanta and need to stay someplace for 2 weeks to a month. You're looking at people they're building a house. They bought a house, they sold a house, a lot of selling of houses right now. And we need an Airbnb for 2 months while we're waiting to buy our next house. You don't get the, hey, let's just pop into Atlanta just for the weekend because Freak Fest is here or something like that. That part has changed.
Okay, and that's a big change because I didn't know that. I wasn't aware that was happening, and I could see where, from a real estate standpoint, we're in a seller's market. A lot of people are selling homes, et cetera, and not having anywhere to go in between, like you just said, during the administration process. So I can see that being a challenge.
Yeah.
So let's say I started up today. I don't want to steal any of your hot tips, or I don't want to ask you to give away anything for free. But if I'm brand new and I'm thinking about just investing or starting, my own Airbnb business, what would I be looking like? What would it take to get going?
It at this point, it takes $2,500. That's all it would take to start your first Airbnb. Right. And in that $2,500, you're including first and last month's rent. And I always tell people not to worry about furniture. I get all my furniture from any furniture store that offers 90 days same as cash. I don't pay anything up front for furniture. This couch I'm sitting on came from a 90-day same as cash place. I never paid for it. I let the revenue from the guests pay for the furniture within 90 days. So my startup was never more than $2,500. I've actually got it down to like $2,000. And that's that I would need to start up a unit. I don't need a stager. I get the bedroom furnished, the dining room furnished, the living room furnished, and then whatever is left over, I go to Walmart, gets my pots and pans, my towels. You don't need anything fancy. I don't need Ralph Lauren towels that people are going to wipe their
right.
Yeah, so I can go to Walmart with $200-$300 and buy all the extras.
Gotcha. And that hasn't impacted customer service, or I mean, guests don't even care as long as they have a roof over their head and it's a clean establishment, correct?
Number one thing I learned is that they do not care if your sheets are 800 thread count or 300 thread count, as long as they're clean and comfortable. So people stay at the Marriott and they don't care that it's not the Regis Hotel. Like, as long as your price is according to what you provide, then you'll be okay.
Gotcha. All right, so let's take another step back. Let's go back 10 years. If you could go back and talk to Nicholas Stewart 10 years ago and help yourself out, what would you tell yourself in regards to Airbnb? What would you do differently?
I would have invested a lot more in those properties that nobody was paying attention to 10 years ago. They were giving away, I'll tell you this, they were giving away houses sub 25 in Atlanta, and they would sit on the market for a year, nothing like today. Right. They would just sit on the market for a year because no one liked that area, or no one could see the potential in that area. I would have bought more houses if given the chance. I would have invested more. And it's the same advice I'd have for today. You find a dilapidated houses away. And I wish I had invested more in that.
Nice tips. And that definitely does make sense. So again, I have my $2,500. I'm starting out. And I know that we're going to have listeners from all over the country, but in Atlanta, what specifically would I be looking for in regards to finding, my first place to rent or buy, or the question would be, is it better to buy a house? Or I know there's a way where, you can also rent apartments, etc. So just talk to us a little bit about that.
So I usually say that for the person starting out, more times than not, they're not in a position to buy. If you're in a position to buy, it's a whole different track. So the average person who comes to me and who wants to start out is looking for what's called rental arbitrage, which is the subletting of an apartment building, preferably with permission, but more times than not, every single sublet lease says we do not allow Airbnb or short-term rental. Right. But the whole rental arbitrage market is based on the fact that you get a apartment, you get a rental apartment inside of an apartment building for the first month's last month's rent. Get your keys and just start Airbnb. It's literally all that rental arbitrage is. And if you spend more time looking for a place that will give you permission, you'll never
start.
So the majority of my Airbnbs are all without permission, because it's the only way it can operate if you don't own the building. If you're in a position to buy the building, it's a whole different track. You control everything. You do whatever you want. You don't give leases. You do short-term rental. And you don't even need the $2,500 to start, right? Because you actually own the building. You just need to stage it. Gotcha. But the average person starting out, it's to try and find an apartment building near activities. If we're talking about Atlanta, the busy parts of Midtown, downtown, Buckhead, and there are plenty of Airbnbs inside these apartment buildings with you.
Good tips, good tips. And then the last question before we close out. Tell me a little bit about a day in the life of an Airbnb host. So obviously the goal is to have multiple properties and you're managing, how much time should someone really be thinking about investing, if they wanted to start a business like this?
It's impossible to grow if you're going to work a full 9 to 5 and still try to expand your Airbnb business. It's impossible. You're going to want to, taking a quote from the Shark Tanks, you're going to have to invest 100% of your time and go into it full-fledged. And so my number one tip would be, you're the cleaner, you're the maintenance man, you are all the positions you would normally outsource when you're just starting out, and it cuts your overhead down. So even with all my units, there are times that I will clean myself because I'm keeping the cleaning fee as extra revenue to offset rent. So you have to be, once you get your second one, you might be able to work and keep one, but if you're trying to grow, then you have to go all in 100% of your time into Airbnb, adjusting your listing, marketing your listing, cleaning your listing, staging your listing, managing your listing, be prepared for lockouts, lost keys, parties, fights. You're your own security guard. So it is 100% of your time if you're planning to scale. If you don't want to scale and you're happy with $100 a month profit, then, keep the one and keep your 9 to 5.
That makes sense. And I know that I said that was the last question, but you hit a nerve for me, and that was marketing. So this obviously is a marketing podcast as well. We talk to agents and owners about, how they're getting their businesses out there. From a marketing standpoint, do you have 2 or 3 steps or tips, things that you would, again, suggest that a new Airbnb host take into consideration outside of, I guess, the platform marketing your location? What would you do to get your name out there?
Number one thing is each listing that you have should have its own social media page. So whatever catchphrase, cute name, the Red Barn of Midtown, whatever you want to call your listing, should have a direct social media page that just features reviews and pictures of that listing. And you're going to take those screenshots and place it inside of Airbnb as well. So you're linking your social media screenshots to your Airbnb page. You might use Craigslist, you might use Facebook, you might use Instagram, you might use LinkedIn, but each site should have its own social media page. That's the number one. Number two is when you're trying to market to guests who are outside of these platforms, you increase your revenue by 30%. The 30% that you're giving away to these platforms, if you're successful at marketing, you also now increase your revenue 30% for each booking that you get.
Nice. Yeah. So cool. You definitely dropped some hot tips. I'm sure there's more. If you guys don't know, Nicholas also offers a masterclass in Airbnb. So if you're thinking about getting started, definitely tap in with him. And Nicholas, how can they find you to get more information on Airbnb?
You can reach me on Facebook, facebook.com/invisible concierge, or the tag on Instagram is Invisible Concierge, INVISIBLE or email me directly at nicholas@invisibleconcierge.com.
Excellent. All right. So we definitely appreciate your time. Folks, definitely tap in. Here we have another owner who's definitely crushing it in his industry. Obviously, he gave you some good tips today. So if you want more information, reach out to us here at GladMash or Nicholas at invisibleconcierge.com. And he gave you your email, or he gave you his email address. So definitely find a way to tap in. All right. Thanks for chiming in, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Agents and Owners Chit Chat is produced by GladMash. To be featured or sponsored, or to sign up for Agents and Owners free social media tips, please visit www.gladmash.com.